Hi, I'm Joni Patry, and welcome to our Get Astrologic Now YouTube channel. And today I want to talk about the life of Robin Williams. And what we really want to talk about today is to make a tribute to his life, because he was such a great comedian and such a great person in terms of his kindness, his sweetness. Everyone that knew him speaks of him so highly in terms of his kindness and his sweetness. So, and of course, we know that comedians, there's usually a reason why they hide behind their comedy, because there's usually a darkness or there's a sadness that comedians usually have as a facade or that they hide behind. So we can talk about that. And also, I think it's interesting to look in a chart to see what makes someone funny, because comedians have to be one step ahead of everyone to be funny, because it takes a really sharp, creative, witty mind to master comedy. So with that, I'd like to start with his birth data. I have Robin Williams born July 21st, 1951. The time is 1:34 p.m., 1334, in Chicago, Illinois. Now, here's one thing that all of you newbies to astrology need to understand. Back in the day when I learned astrology, we had to calculate them ourselves. So we had to look up all the time changes, and here's an interesting fact. Around the 50s, most of the 50s, in Chicago, Illinois, and Indiana, there was daylight savings time, but it was recorded in standard time. So if you have a computer program, you must manually take the daylight savings time off to have a proper birth chart for anyone born, we used to call it in the I states in the Midwest. So with that, he has got 19 degrees of Libra as his ascendant. And we all know that everyone that has Libra as their ascendant has been going through a really rough time because of the Saturn Rahu influence for over the past year and a half to 2 years that we've had Saturn there. So this has been a tough, heavy time with heavy responsibilities, and it's very depressing. Saturn teaches us great lessons, but Saturn is no fun. So it makes us responsible and makes us heavy, and does really deplete the energy in the physical body for all of those that can attest to that with Libra as their ascendant. So with Libra as ascendant, the most important thing I think to notice in his chart is the fact that he has Moon conjunct Rahu, and it's in the 5th house in Aquarius. And the nakshatra that the Moon Rahu are in is called Shatabishak. And the nakshatras can be very telling in terms of characteristics and specific karmas of the soul. And I find that the nakshatra Shatabishak is one of the most significant nakshatras in addictions, in the problems of addictions. And we all know that Robin struggled with his addictive type personality and behaviors. And so Shatabishak, it means the 1,000 healers or the 100 healers. And it also means the sky watcher. And the healing aspect of it does come together with the aspect that people with this nakshatra really strong are somehow associated with addictions, not necessarily their own, but others sometimes. And it deals with the healing of this. So the other nakshatra, by the way, that Robin does not have that deals with addictions is Mula. So Shatabishak and Mula. But looking at Rahu so close to the Moon is the mind, and it's in the 5th house of intellect and the mind. So this would make him very dramatic and expressive. The 5th house is drama, theater, acting, because it is relative to the 5th sign Leo. But these two coming together are part of his genius that makes him such a wonderful actor and so expressive. But the darker side is the extremes with Rahu, with the Moon, that can make one over the top, can be paranoid, and can be can exaggerate the thought processes and ideas, but of course it also exaggerates the talent, because the fifth house, bottom line, deals with talent. And here we're talking about a very talented individual. Now, also, the thing that I find very interesting about his chart is he has Mars conjunct Uranus, and they're in the sign of Gemini. Now, when we talk about humor, Gemini is probably the most important sign there is that can reflect someone's sense of humor or being funny. And we know that to be funny, you have to have a strong Mercury. So by the fact that Mars and Uranus are in Gemini, that they are disposited by planet Mercury. And his Mercury is in Cancer in the 10th house. So here he shines, he has a career, he's famous. But his Mercury being in Cancer, we look at the dispositorship, it reflects back to the 5th house, which we're looking at the mind. And really, if we want to understand why he had the bouts of depression that he had, you will look to the dispositor of the moon, which the moon is the mind, and because it's in Aquarius, it's Saturn. And Saturn goes to the 12th house of losses and behind the scenes, and sometimes it can deal with isolation and being alone. And he recollected when he was a child, he spent, his early childhood by himself. He played by himself. He was a loner. So this is a part to attest to his personality. Now, he also had Jupiter in the 6th house in Pisces. And this would attest to the problems that he was having health-wise. Now, they said that he definitely was starting to develop signs of early Parkinson disease. And I was noting that planet transiting, now I'm going to throw in the transits, transiting Uranus and K2 are in his 6th house surrounding his Jupiter, ruler of the 6th. So there's the indication of something occurring along the lines of disease and problems. And furthermore, when I was looking at all of the transits, Saturn in the 1st house, Mars in the 1st house transiting, this was the time that he felt so angry that he took his life. But the disease potential that probably was something that made him depressed and took his life was the aspect of worrying about this onset of Parkinson coming. And I wanted you to know that Pluto, this grand cross that's been forming with Pluto, Uranus being in square to one another, activates his Jupiter, ruler of the 6th house in the 6th house. So this is the discovery and the onset of this disease. But most of all, what I really find happening is I tell my students to really notice Neptune, because Neptune's not usually used in Vedic astrology, but it is so important. And last but not least, this moon Rahu that really is the sign in Shatabishak that deals with his problems, his emotional problems, transiting Neptune was almost right directly on his natal moon. And this was causing confusion and a lack of understanding. And because the moon's dispositor is Saturn in the 12th house, this made him very sad and depressed. So I think it was all the combination of the transiting planets with being in the 1st house, the Saturn, the Mars, and the Rahu that just left. And then Rahu just left and is now in his 12th house of endings. This is the transits. And to recap, planet Uranus and K2 are aspecting his Jupiter in the 6th house of disease. But his sense of humor and incredible mind was really depicted by his Mars being in the sign of Gemini. And Mercury, this made Mercury so powerful because he's sharp, witty, intelligent, and probably wise beyond his years. And I just wanted to pay tribute to this great soul that taught us so much and continues to teach us about the affliction of mental disease and how it can really hurt yourself and friends and family. So I think that we should all start being much more aware about the problems of addictions and disease, because this plagues everyone in the world and plagues everyone's life. So with that, I'd like to close, and if you're interested in having a reading with me, remember you can always go to my website, which is galacticcenter.org. Thank you.